Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 416, recorded live on Friday, January 29th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have Propane. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, he's kind enough to jump in kind of literally last minute,
Oh, it's
past
been
last
a
minute.
minute and a half or so ago.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. Things change and life happens. So this week's screenshot, Titus gets the spa treatment in the 256th screenshot of the week. Nice little blue dragon armor in what I assume is a ship spa.
I can't tell if it's face up or face down though, but I like the bubbles.
The bubbles are nice. Yeah, the kind of the bubbles are a little bit over the head, so you can't really tell. Uh, it looks like Warforged armor, though. I think it's a Warforged.
Yeah, I
Tough
wonder
to
if
say.
that's in the Explorer area. They got the big sauna thing. It could be in there too.
Oh,
I'm not
maybe.
sure where that's at.
Your task, if you choose to accept it, is to email me this week where that is. That's your goal. If you want to have some fun and play hide and seek. We like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, or from our website at DDOcast.com. You can also check us out on iTunes and such places as well. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording, and the next show will probably be next Sunday, which is Super Bowl Sunday. So take this with a grain of salt. It may not happen. You can stay updated by following us on social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, there's a little bit of game news. We had an update, so we got some of that stuff. But we're going to focus our discussion on Cloaks this week. If you remember, it's been a while. We kind of started going through the different inventory slots. We did the head slot and the neck slot, and now we're going to do the Cloaks. It's been several months since we've done that. But so we'll just kind of go through Cloaks and talk about some of our favorite Cloaks, and then kind of talk about some ones that are what we consider best in slot options. Although, to be upfront and a little ahead of the game, I didn't really put a lot in that spot. Cloaks, in my opinion, are probably one of the more underutilized inventory slots in the game, and I tend to, at least particularly for my melee, tend to have that leaves some wanting on what I've got in my cloaks. It's going to take sometimes. Usually, I have a named item there, but sometimes I'm kind of looking for random stuff, or it's a swappable spot. I'll probably make some legendary green still cloaks, just because it's a good open slot for some of those characters. But we'll start with some of our favorites. And I put on here, even though it's a Korthos item, the Curative Cloak. And the reason I put this here is because it's a Cure Light Wounds clicky, which really won't seem like much, particularly if you're trying to do some healing of yourself, because you only get one per day. It's not a lot. But, particularly at your lower levels, it's pretty handy for getting someone off the floor when they go incapacitated.
You know, I had a couple guildies this last week that were running some TR characters in that 6 to 8 range, and they actually had to pull out healers kits and figure out how to use them. And that happened once, the guy was embarrassed, and then like 2 hours later it happened again. So they still work as well, but I agree that it's nice having some ability to throw a couple hit points at somebody.
And I mean, it's not something that must be widely known, but I've had some of my characters get to level 20 and they still got this cloak in their inventory. And it's just hanging out there in case I need to pick someone off the floor, scrape them up, and prop them up kind of thing. It's a
Between
useful thing.
between that and trying to get some sort of method to raise dead, depending on the character, sometimes that's hard, sometimes it's easy, but it's always nice to be able to throw a couple hit points, and as you get higher levels, be able to throw a raise in some way, shape, or form.
At least until you get some sort of epic destiny ability like Cocoon or something like that. It's a useful little trick. There's actually also kind of off topic. There's a set of bracers that's an aid clicky, which you can do the same thing with. Although the aid's it's a temporary hit point thing, so I mean I think it's 11 hit points, which will generally pick someone off of the floor. But there are ways to increase your incapacity range past 10, so or past
I know
-9. So
some people use rage cookies to help others too, but the offset chance they're already raged, then that wouldn't work. But
Rage and Greater Heroism are also options for that. But there's this handy dandy cloak. It has no minimum level. It's I think it's one of the first three, or maybe it's one of the ones in the Korthos Island, but it's in the Korthos storyline.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
early.
it's not hard to get at all. So, if you're a new character and you need a cloak, go grab this one. Even if you just leave it in your bag and have an option to switch to it. The next one I put down is the Mysterious Cloaks. There's actually three of them. You get them for Mysterious Remnants. I think they're level 7, 14, and 21. I'm holding out hope that there's going to be a level 28 version soon. It's actually a really good cloak. It Some people might consider it best in slot, other than the fact that it's not a very high level comparatively. I mean, 21 is low compared to what you could generally get. You can go all the way to level 30 with cloaks. So, but it has healing amplification, an exceptional bonus. But it also has exceptional bonus of 15, 30, or 45. And then it also has magical resistance and insight bonus of 11, 18, or 25. It also has a green slot and a colorless slot, which is pretty handy.
When I look at these cloaks, the mysterious ones, I think of one of the most common helms in the game, the Minos Legions, and you actually can add that whole item ability to this cloak and then still have the magical resistance and the healing amp.
Yeah, these are two abilities that until recently you couldn't even get insight for magical resistance except on named items. So, and healing amp is always kind of a trick to get. There is something that I like to do is take one of these and throw a heavy fort augment into that green slot. It does increase the lowest level one, the minimum level, but you can do it with the level 14 one as well. It just becomes a really, really slick little thing. So it works pretty well.
I'm trying to think if you get the Vitality gem out of the Minos Legions, what that ups the minimum level to.
Ooh, I don't know off the top of my head.
I got Google going in the background, so give me a second.
Yeah, I don't know. It that would also be a good one because then it's it's an upgrade to Minos Legend.
Well, you can put both the heavy fort and the hit point ability on the cloak and then have the extra stuff.
Yeah. So like I said, it's an upgrade, and if you can do it lower than level 11, it would be a better level upgrade.
Yeah, minimum level 11 on the colorless slot for the Vitality. So it'd be the same item as the Minos Legions. You can put your heavy fort and your plus 20 hit points in there and then be ahead of having the magical resistance and healing amp.
Yeah, and they're like I said, magical resistance and healing amp are great low level, even at level 21. I think the bonuses are pretty good. The only reason I didn't really put it into the best in slot idea was it's just a little bit too low of level. It's because it only goes to level 1. So.
But one more notch up at the level 28 or so would
It is
make
a
it a
7
much more
level
interesting.
a 7 level increment. So, let's see. The next one I have is Cloak of the Night, which again, this is another one that has a really large level range. Kentouch is saying the Vitality Augment is level 11, by the way. And the reason why I like the cloak, this came out of Maybar, or now Night Rivals. They did put it in that. It was also in the Mimic Hunt event because Maybar kind of fizzled the last time around. And I like this one because it has a lot of nice stuff on it, particularly for a roguey type. And what it's got is an invisibility guard, which means when you get hit, you can go invisible, which is pretty nice. And that invisibility is unlike most invisibilities in that it doesn't break when you attack something. It's short. It's only like 6 seconds. But it does like generally get rid of your aggro, which is really slick. So I like it for that. It has Ghostly, which is probably pound for pound one of my best or one of my favorite things you can find on an item. The reason why I like it is that it not only gives you incorporeality, which is a mischance, but it also gives your weapons Ghost Touch without having to equip a Ghost Touch weapon.
Yeah, two very nice things to have.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And who doesn't like getting missed more often? I mean, that's kind of like a big thing, right? You don't want to get hit too much. It's got Death Block, always a handy thing to have. And Death Block for me is one of those things that I'm not usually as cognizant of or like whether or not I'm wearing it. So to have it on an item that I'm just going to be wearing a lot, it's usually a really good thing for me. It's a fairly common occurrence for me to get fingered or something. And it's like, oh, hey, I should probably put Death Block on or something like that. Mark of Death is a place that is always challenging me to remember if I'm wearing Death Block or not because of his attacks. It has Nightmare Guard, which is kind of meh. I believe that's what that is it's a Phantasmal Killer guard
Yeah, it
effect.
looks like that. It's kind of cool when you're a fighter, shield block, and all of a sudden, poof, somebody goes away.
I mean, it's nice. The problem with Phantasmal Killer is it's a 2-save spell. I should mention too that this is all the stuff that's on the level 24, which is the most advanced you can get with it. So it you can't the lower levels will have less of these and not as good of these.
I think I was a
So
little disappointed with the dodge only being +6 at a level 24. I was hoping to see +8 at least.
yeah, the dodge is a little low. The DR, however, 10 good is pretty nice. Again, the only kind of issue with DR is it's not exactly the best thing in the game. 10 stopping 10 damage is stopping 10 damage. But when you're stopping 10 damage out of 500 damage, it starts to be a little silly. It's not doing you as good. But it's a great cloak. It works really well for the, like I said, I like it on rogue types because the invisibility guard's going to go off, and they're going to stop attacking you, and then you're going to get that sneak attack damage again. So it can be really nice for that. And they also usually need Death Block. It's usually a good thing for them to have. Let's see. The next one I have is and I can never pronounce this, and I tried to spell it from memory and it was totally wrong. The Drow Pawafi thingy. It comes out of Evening Star, the first chain. And it's kind of a poor man's Cloak of the Night. It has the invisibility guard on it. That's kind of the huge thing. That's the useful thing to have on it. Because then you get, again, you have to have that same, like, you're attacking me, hey, I'm invisible, go away, kind of thing. It also has sneak attack bonus +5, which is kind of nice.
And for the sneaky types, the hide moves silently are nice. So for my assassins, that's something I'll typically wear for a little while. It just helps sneak around.
Yeah, it's a nice little trick. Hide and move silently are not something that I do a lot of, unless I'm on my assassin, and then it's usually kind of like just sneak long enough for me to get up and stick him in the kidneys. That's usually what I'm going for. Let's see. Moving right along, the next one I have is kind of a fun one. Actually, I'm going to skip that one and we'll go to it later because it has a theme with some of the other ones. We're going to go to the Bard's Cloak, which comes out of Vision of Destruction, which is kind of an older raid. It's not really run as much. I put it in here because it had, at the time, comparatively, I think the minimum level was like 13, and it had a Charisma 6 on it, which was hard to get at that level. But it also has Perform 15. So it's a Bard's Cloak, right? Charisma and Perform. These are great things
Yeah,
for a Bard
level,
to
it's
have.
a beautiful cloak. It's probably, none of it's worth the grind right now. If you go in with a whole party, there's a good chance they'll just toss it to you. But
Yeah,
at the time, it was really nice. But as the game has changed, yeah.
it's it's not as big of a thing as you're going to go out and find these days. But if you happen to be in the level range and you happen to be able to run a VOD, that's a nice cloak. Particularly these days, Perform now doing sonic damage, applying the sonic damage, Warlocks might find this to be really handy as well. I put it in here. It's not as big of a cloak, but it's kind of one of my favorites. Actually, kind of like it. Also has 2 clickies of Greater Command, which isn't too shabby. Although I don't know that I've ever gotten it to actually land. Although, to be fair, I haven't.
Level, it's interesting. The cloak's a level 13 or so minimum, so that's when you can equip it. And on the second life, I think it had a little use, but generally when you looted it, you were closer to that 18 to 20, and by then that Greater Command, the saves are too high.
Yeah,
And the mob saves, it didn't land very often.
Clickies that are save based and wands that are save based are generally not that great unless you're running over level. But it's in there. It's a fun. It's a thematically appropriate item, and if you have it, it's a pretty good cloak for its level range.
And it was a nice, for that raid, it was a nice piece of loot to put in there for the bard type characters because they'd have a reason to go run it and try to buff people. So some of the raids have loot that's more specified for different characters or roles, and it was nice to see some bard love out there when that item was thrown in there.
Yeah, it's a good item. We'll go with that. That's a fun one. Let's see. The next ones I want to go into are the Evening Star Challenge Cloaks, which, challenges, again, not something that's run a whole lot, but I know Lessah really likes running challenges, and she might actually be here with us.
When you say her name, she appears as if by magic.
Hi, Lessah.
Hi!
Hello!
Hey!
Happy Friday!
Happy Friday to you, too.
Yay, Friday. Thanks for hopping in for fun.
No problem.
Give you the link for the show notes here.
Thank
So
you,
we're
thank
talking
you.
about cloaks. So the Evening Star Challenge cloaks, I really like these. They're pretty easy to get. Evening Star challenges are not hard to run. I like them. They're a lot of fun. They're short too. Aside from the Underdark Arena ones can be a little bit longer, but they don't feel that long.
They're 10 minutes.
Yeah, they start at 10 minutes, right? And then every time you do one of the ring the bell things, you get more time.
Oh yeah, so it's maybe
It's
15
a little
by the time you're
it's a little
said and
deceptive
done. Yeah.
about how much time they are.
These cloaks are much more interesting now that they've adjusted the number of materials you need to get them. When they first came out, the math was different, and you had a large amount of materials you needed. Now I forget, it was maybe a year or two ago, they scaled that back some, and now they're much more reasonable to get.
They also made the bound to count the ingredients, which made it a lot easier to get.
Yeah, those two
So much
changes
easier.
both were quite nice.
And as long as you don't... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the challenge is your first time XP is very cool per life.
Oh,
So it's easy to make one run through all the challenges just for the first time 5-star XP alone.
I was going to add, as long as you don't take that cloak to the 3rd tier, let's say at level 15, where the cloak gets particularly sexy, you can pass it between your characters. It's also bound to account, just like the ingredients are. But if you take it to the 3rd, to that crafting level tier, then it becomes bound to
You're talking about the ones from
You're
House
talking about
Kenneth.
cloaks, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You're talking about the kind of... Well, I'm talking about the
are you
Evening
talking
Star
about the
ones.
mithril cloak of the bear and all that?
Right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I have never used the other two, but I do have a mithril cloak of the bear on one of my paladins.
Yeah,
And
these
used
come
it.
in 16, 20, and 24, those levels.
Yes, and it's very important to mention that you have to start at level 16 if you want to take it to level 24. You can't just be level 24 and go, oh, I'm going to get this cloak. Because you have to build.
Yeah,
Yes, go look.
It's been so long.
Yeah,
since
the
I
It's
lower
played.
level
expensive,
cloaks are the
baby.
ingredient to make the next tier up.
There's
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
a few of my characters I actually left them at 20 because I had better cloaks past level 24 or around level 24, but I didn't really have anything to get me from 20 to whatever that cloak was, so I I kind of popped them in at just level 20. And each one of them has some nice stuff on it. You can get better in other places pretty easily, but they're pretty good.
And quickly, this is what happened to my paladin because I was so obsessed with upgrading this cloak. In upgrading the cloak, actually outleveled its usefulness, and I found something better that was
Yeah.
higher level, and I was higher level by that time, so I didn't even need it. Because remember, it's not like the Caneth stuff where you only have to have half as many ingredients to upgrade your stuff. You have to have all the ingredients plus the cloak
Right.
to level it up. So it's like something like I'm going to verify for you right now. I'm standing at the Evening Star Trader. Isn't that convenient?
Hey, there we go.
Wow.
So really quick, so we're talking about these cloaks. There's 3 cloaks. I'm gonna just read what the upper tier has for them. So there's the bear cloak, which is kind of more your tanky type. It's got sheltering 9, which is it's pretty meh. Now you can get better on it. It's PRR and MRR, so you can get better than that now. The protection 7, again, you can get better now. The thing that's kind of nice about this one is the combat mastery plus 6, which is really handy if you want to do tactics. That's kind of why I made this cloak in the first place. It also has insight 20, which if you're going to tank is really nice.
This cloak and then the spare hand belt from the Keeneth challenges, I go back and forth with depending on the character build and the gear layout because they both have the combat mastery mixed in depending which is preferred. But
Right.
I do have several. I think the my monk builds, I like this because the sheltering's a little hard to get or harder to get at level.
Yeah. The combat mastery, again, is one of those things that these days with the new random loot you can find better. At least I think you can find better at that level. I'm not exactly positive on that. But it's still a nice little cloak. And again, like I said at the beginning, cloaks are, particularly for my melees or my martial characters, they're usually struggling to find a really good cloak for their kind of builds and whatnot. The other one is, so there's Wolf, which has Exceptional Seeker 5, which is still pretty competitive, actually. Dodge 8%, attack bonus plus 4, and diversion 20%. Which, again, it's not like top tier out of necessarily any of those, but it's a really handy thing, particularly if you have, like my Ranger really likes this, Rogues kind of, I mean, we've already talked about some other good Rogue options, but, so it's a good little item. It's also, I'm going to point out, diversion can be a really handy thing if you're on a character maybe that's built to do a little bit more tanking, has a little more built-in threat. Maybe you're using a defender stance.
Was it diversion the other way? Oh, yeah,
Diversion,
so you don't pull
diversion
threat.
gets away
Yeah.
from the threat.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if you have a character that's kind of built more as a tank and you start to go into a raid and you're not supposed to be the tank, diversion item is kind of handy to have to do that. The third cloak is the Dragon Cloak, which is more of a casting one. It's spellcasting implement plus 18, which is really kind of wacky because it's not an item, but that can free up. If you want to have an implement bonus, but maybe you don't want to carry a implement style weapon, good option. Potency plus 76, spell focus 2, which is really nice. It's plus 2 to all your DCs, and then Stealth Strike, which reduces your threat by 15%. For ranged weapons and spells.
Can I put this into perspective for you, Patrick?
Please do, Lessah.
Okay.
I love your perspective.
Oh, thank you. All right. Just to get one of these cloaks, this is we're talking total all-in commitment because you're going to be collecting 2,000 ingredients from 4 different Evening Star challenges just to get your first level 16 cloak. The one that I think the stuff you just went over was at the level 20?
24.
Yeah, okay. So, to upgrade, you're going to have to get 2,000 more ingredients from the same 4 Evening Star challenges, plus the cloak that you just built. So it's not like you can go back on a TR and wear your level 16 cloak. That cloak is now level 20. Its cloak is basically an epic TR item now. And so, the exact same thing, let's move over to the level 24 challenge trader. You have to collect another 2,000 ingredients from the same 4 different Evening Star challenges and your level 20 cloak
Are those
that
the
you've
old
already
numbers?
invested 4,000. I'm looking at it now. I am
Okay, huh.
all you. That is the same cloak that you've already invested 4,000 ingredients in. This is a, forgive me, it's a time sink. You have to want it.
But let me give it a
And
little
it's
bit
not,
different of
and
a
with
spin
the
though.
current power creep, honestly, it's kind of, it's not sexy enough anymore. It needs an augment slot or something. For that much work, needs to be a little better.
That's
See,
an excellent suggestion. An augment slot would be
Yeah,
okay,
awesome.
an
nice.
augment slot I think would change it. It would make it way more appealing, especially at level 24.
So from the perspective of people who have lots of alts like Propane and I, uh,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't too bad because what you do is, every character when they get to Epic every life, you run the whole series of the 6 challenges once because it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of XP.
Yep.
Especially if you can get it timed on one of those VIP weekends where you're getting a little extra XP on that. Grab a pot. I mean, these things are bank for XP if you can 6-star them or 5-star them. They're still really good. And after a couple runs of that, you'll open that magical bank in the sky, and you'll find that you have enough ingredients for them all.
That's as long as you remember and have the time to put your ingredients in a little pile, and then remember to go and get them, and then remember to go and talk to the challenge trader. That's a lot of remembering. You
Yeah.
might need to write this
This
down.
this is another reason why some of my characters only have level 20 versions.
You
Yeah.
mean you don't have an alt dedicated to collectibles?
Yeah.
You would think she did. She's pretty big on collectibles.
Collectible Lessa.
Yeah. Um, so those are the Evening Star Challenge cloaks. Gonna go to the jeweled cloak, which I like this one. This is not an item that I wear a lot, but almost every one of my characters has this, and the reason being is it's got spell absorption on it. And particularly if you are getting into certain raids or maybe some of your other defenses aren't so great, spell absorption is awesome. The epic versions have spell absorption. Normal and hard have 20 charges. Elite has 25 charges. Um, it's kind of a poor man's Pale Lavender Ionstone. Um, although, depending on what level of stuff you're getting hit with, it might actually come out to be a little better than that. But they're pretty easy to get. If you run the flagging chain for Fall of Truth, uh, probably every third time you're probably going to get the cloak in your end reward. Or at least that's what it seemed like. Um, I've collected several over the years, and I mean they're exclusives. You can only have one in every character, but they're really
I think
handy to
they
have.
bind on equip, so if you get one, you
They
can
do.
pass it through. Yeah.
They bind on equip. You might have to. What I've had to do a few times is you turn in the end reward. Hey, look, a jeweled cloak. Great, I need another one. Run back to the bank, dump the one he's got in the bank, run back, grab that one, throw it in the shared bank, and then grab the first one out of his bank. So sometimes I end up doing that, but I like it because it got spell absorption, which can be handy in places. It's also
Yeah,
got
agreed.
it's also
Do
got
that.
some kind of resistance on it for elemental damage. But again, I'm usually only wearing this if I need the spell absorption. Uh, and you'd be surprised that you can actually tank Fall of Truth, the Storm Reaver with one of these cloaks, pretty effectively. Just as long as you're switching it in and out, so you're only using it during the boom attack. Um, in the same vein, the Mantle of the World Shaper, which comes out of Threnel, and this is in honor of Dave Arneson. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
I think so.
I'll go
Who's
with it.
one of the creators of DDO, or sorry, D&D. When he passed away, they introduced the Mantle of the World Shaper, much like they did the Voice of the Master for Gary Gygax. It has the Heroic Inspiration, which gives you plus 5 XP, which, let's face it, is pretty stinking awesome. It has 5 spell absorption charges, which is also pretty stinking awesome. And then if you have this one and the Voice of the Master, you get DM's Vision, which is True Seeing. And it's a level 5 item with the Voice of the Master. So imagine, if you will, having 5 spell absorption charges, 5% XP, and True Seeing at level 5, which is pretty stinking awesome. assuming you have the voice of the master, which is probably the much more popular and common version of the heroic inspiration.
Well, because you have to do a lot less work for it.
It's also a lot harder to mess up the quest chain in Delaris
Yes.
than it is in Threnal.
It is. That's the truth. How many times have you been in a party in Threnal and someone says, "Oh, I accidentally picked up the quest again," or they screw up talking to this person or that person, and then they've just basically cheated themselves out of the end reward, and no voice of the no mantle of the world shaper for you.
Yeah, it's a little tricky to get through that, but it's a great level 5 item. Also want to point out that if you have the voice of the master and the mantle of the world shaper, you can throw them in the epic altar with 5 of the, I believe, greater tokens of the 12, and you can make an augment that gives you that heroic inspiration, the plus 5% XP, and you can put it anywhere you want in a colorless. It's a colorless augment, so anywhere you can put an augment. Just be aware that it's going to make the item bound.
That's kind of handy because I know some people always forget to throw the voice in, and you're missing some of the XP for the optionals during the quest unless you're always hot swapping. So if you have a very common run character, that's not a bad investment long term.
Yeah, and plus it lets you put something more handy in the trinket slot. Which by the time you get into epics, there's some really good trinkets available. Let's see. Next one I have is one of my favorites. And the reason why I moved it down on the list is the Epic Fjarlin Mare Cloak, which comes out of the Fjarlin Carnival. And the reason why I like this is that it also has spell absorption 5 charges. Not as much as the other one, as the Jewel Cloak, but it's got 5 charges. It's also blurry, which I like, because that's 20% miss chance. Doesn't stack with blur, but it makes you not to cast on yourself. It also has greater light resistance, which it may be one of the very few named items that actually has light resistance on it. Until the recent loot changes, you couldn't really get light resistance. That was really hard to do. And I really like it as a Pale Master, because light damage does extra damage to me. The downside being if you're on a Pale Master and using your aura, it drains your charges, so you don't get to use those. But it's pretty nice. It also has spell resistance 30 and enhanced hide 5 and enhanced move silently 5. Which if you're doing the sneaking stuff, it can be helpful if you need that little extra boost. Did you get enough pieces for this one yet, Lessah? I know you were farming something out of Carnival. I think she forgot how to unmute her mic again. Let's see. Other cloaks that I like. There is the Ghost Waking Cloak, also out of the Giant Hold. It has heroic and epic versions. The epic, I think the most epic version is Charisma 8, Resistance 7, Ghostly, and DR 10 Evil.
That's a fairly handy cloak too, especially considering it's fairly easy to get a hold of.
It is pretty easy to get a hold of. This is one of those cloaks that I tended to wear a lot on some of my casters, because the Charisma 8 was pretty good at the time, and like the Ghostly and like the DR, a little extra defense. And again, didn't really have a lot of better options. They kind of, for a while, I was using the cloak that's out of the Stormweaver's tablecloth, but that has kind of since fallen out of style for me because of the other places where you can get a lot of the stuff on it. But Ghost Waking is still pretty nice. Again, Ghostly, I like Ghostly. Resistance 7 isn't too bad. Again, you can get better in the game now, but it was a decent cloak at the time. See, I also like the Deathworm Cloak, which comes out of the Explorer area in the Thunderholm. The reason why I like this one is it has negative amplification 20, which if you're a Pale Master is pretty handy. It also gives you, I think, plus 30 artifact bonus to negative energy or damage, and it also has a force absorption of 10%. Easy to get. They're on the auction house all the time. I can't sell mine because they're so cheap and people don't want to buy them. There's so many of them. But a nice little handy item for Pale Masters in particular. So a nice little one there. And then the last one I have, just in kind of my favorites section, is the Legendary Constructs Mantle. And really, I mostly put it in here because it has quality intelligence +3 and quality magnetism +36, so pretty handy for artificers and um, other intelligence-based types. It also has repair amplification, healing amplification, which is pretty nice. So if you are a Warforged or if you're an artificer and have those bonuses, and you might want those, it's a nice little thing. Again, I wouldn't consider it best in the slot. If I wasn't wearing anything else, it might be pretty handy. It's probably better than what most of my Warforged are wearing as a cloak right now, anyways. So it's kind of where it is. Do you have any favorites that you like, particularly Propane or Lessah, for cloaks?
I was going to mention from House Cannith, the Mage Right cloak. It's kind of a poor man's bard cloak where you get the charisma and the extra to perform, and does have a little bit of threat reduction with the stealth strike on it. Also, in the theme of bards, Storm Singer's cloak you can get. It's got Perform 11 Anthem, which is always nice for the bards, and was +4 resistance.
That's like level 11 or so out of the. It comes out of the Storm Reach attack on Storm Reach.
Assault in Summerfield, I think it's in.
The Anthem
13.
At lower levels for a bard is pretty handy.
Or especially if you have a bard splash where you don't have full bard levels.
Yeah, if you need more songs, because that regenerates your songs for you, which is really nice.
And I was going to give a nod out to the Storm Reaver's Napkin. Back in the day, there were a lot of people that spent a lot of time farming that, being Intelligence 6 and the Spell Focus 1. Now it's overshadowed, but back in the day, there's a lot of people spent time farming that.
Yeah, it's a nice one. There's also a cloak in the House Cannith challenges that Lessah was kind of referencing earlier. That's okay. It's not,
the fire one?
It's
Cloak of Flames, that's it.
Yeah, it's not one that I ever really went nuts after, mostly because I kind of already spec'd out of fire at that point. But it's got some decent stuff, fire absorption on it, so it's got, it's not terrible. If you're fire spec'd, you might want to take a look at it. It's got some good options there.
I've been talking this whole time, muted. I'm so sorry. I was just trying to tell you things about this cloak that you're talking about. Whoops. That's the Cloak of the Flames, man. And at level 15, even for I play almost exclusively paladins, and my paladin just never took her Cloak of the Flames off. She just kept upgrading it. Level 15, if you get that Fire Shield Hot, where it's 10% chance that when you get hit that you're going to have that Fire Shield on you, plus you get 15% Fire Absorption, which used to be cool. And I believe you get Heightened Awareness. Yep, Heightened Awareness +2 at level 15. And then you can upgrade it to the Epic levels, which I have done and taken to the very top slot, which you get 2 augment slots, 1 blue, 1 colorless, and everything I just said plus Heightened Awareness 4, and the Fire Absorption goes up to 20% at that time.
It also has Fire Lore on it.
Yeah, Fire Lore.
If
I always ignore
fire
that.
Spec, it's pretty handy.
I don't ever read that one. It's 16% equipment bonus to critical hits. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'd say if your paladin's still wearing this, I mean, it kind of goes back to my earlier point that cloaks are a little lacking in the names department.
Another one I'll mention will be the Epic Cloak of Ice, by having that freezing ice ability. If you got a type of character that you generate a lot of attacks, that freezing ice does proc reasonably often, that it's kind of nice to have. And you get 2 augment slots if you upgrade it.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to find now because they changed it. But if you have one of the old Cloak of Ices, the heroic version, that's a really nice one because it's got 3 clickies of Cold Shield, which will reduce all your fire damage by half before any of your item absorption, which is great. The new version, the current version, they went back and when they updated all the loot, they took out the clicky, and now it has to hit you. You have to be hit for it to proc. So it's not nearly as good as it used to be. But if you have one of the old ones, they're fantastic. So it's a good option. So I want to talk about we'll talk about best in slot. I really only put 2 down because I couldn't really find a lot of ones that I would consider, quote, best in slot. The first one is from Defiler of the Just, Countenance. It's a cloak that it's Charisma 12, which is great. Evocation Focus 5, which is decent if you're doing Evocation. Generally, unless you're a cleric or unless you're a divine doing Implosion, I don't generally consider Evocation Focus a big deal. It also has Radius Lore 10, which I think is, what is that, like 20% chance? I don't
know if you're
it's the
doing a
old one.
Spelled Singer Bard with Sonic SLAs, you can get a lot of stuns going off, and that evocation helps with that.
It's true. It's just not one that I. It's 20% equipment bonus to critical hit, which that's for Radiance Lore, which is fantastic. It's also got Spell Penetration 6 on it, and a yellow and green augment. And if you're lucky, you can get a mythic version. If you're really lucky, you can get a really good mythic bonus of 4. If you're really lucky, I don't know if I've actually ever seen. I think I've seen like maybe 1, maybe 2 items that were mythic 4. It's pretty rare. But it's a great one. It comes out of like I said, Defiler of the Just. It's for those characters, particularly if you got light damage going. I always like getting lore on items that I want to wear for other reasons, because then it, particularly for characters that have multiple elements or element types that they're doing damage for, because it lets you not have to switch around as much. The other one that I put in is Hide of the Fallen, which has a shield bonus of +6, which is really weird for a cloak if you think about it. It has armor piercing 20, which is pretty good. Although most of my melee-ish characters have Thunderforge a lot of the times, or have armor piercing from other places for some reason. It suddenly became a really common thing in my gear slots to have armor piercing. I'm not sure why. It has strength 11, which is pretty nice. The thing that's kind of fun is the Druidic Survival Mastery, which, if you're in a wild shape, you receive a primal bonus to damage equal to half the number of Wilderness Lore feats you have. Obviously, that's very Druid-based, because you have to be in wild shape, and the more Druid levels you have, the more more Wilderness Lore feats you can have. So, it also has a blue slot. It's kind of fun. I like it. I like it mostly because it has the obvious kind of tie-in to a particular character archetype, namely wild shaping, which you don't get to see very much these days, if ever.
Does
really.
it count if you go into what's the Epic Destiny where you get the tree mode?
Primal Avatar. I don't think so, but I'm not really sure, to be honest. Never really tested that.
We can add that to this question about where the picture was taken. We'll find out.
Yeah, I'm sure so. That's one of the people in tree form that's always running around these days. Do you guys have any cloaks that you would consider, quote, best in slot, or something you're always really going for?
I already talked about them, but I've always wanted to find a use for one of the the prismatic cloaks. You get the different colors: red, blue, gray, whatever. I'm not even sure where they come from.
They come out of Stormlands.
I have one. Yeah, I was going to say I have one, so I know I've done the quest chain. It's a sonic absorption, so I was like,
They come
where am
in
I
many
gonna wear
flavors.
this from?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
challenge with them. There's so many different drops that unless you get on the
And it's
auction
got a
house
random
and
piece to it too, so like a random.
I'm sitting here looking
thing
at
on
the
it.
shard exchange, and I want to borrow some money from you guys because I want this cloak. 30% fire absorption resistance, 10 green augment slot. I'll take that.
It'd be kind of
I'd
fun
wear
if you
it.
could actually take all of the if you had one of each of those and throw it into a cauldron somewhere and get like a new cloak that had.
I think it would be cool
Multicolored.
if
Yeah.
it was completely random. Like the resistance that you get whenever you get hit should be completely random. It should be great, but it should be totally random.
you
Because
could
it's
drop
prismatic,
a
right?
trail of Skittles as you
Yeah,
get hit.
exactly. Oh, that would be even better.
Prismatic ray guard.
Are you writing this down, Turbine? Maybe you should get a pad and a pen.
So let's talk about random loot for cloaks. What if you're going for random loot, what are you looking for on a cloak?
Deadly of accuracy with an augment slot. That's kind of my
Yeah, I'll take that.
favorite in
Yeah,
that
it's hard to
spot.
argue with.
Not just an augment slot, but preferably anything green. I like options. I don't want it to be just colorless. I don't want it to be just yellow. I want it to be green, if I can. If I can get away with it.
Does
Because why
green
not?
drop in random?
I don't know. Let's find out. Am I wearing one? No. I have a colorless and yellow slot on mine.
Yeah.
On the one that I'm currently wearing. I'm on my paladin right now, so
I think
I
things
know
that I usually am kind of the random ones that I've hung on to probably the longest tend to be intimidate ones. Because for a while there was a little bit of a dearth of named items that had intimidate bonuses on them. So I kind of found a few that were like high charisma with intimidate for my non-paladin characters. Even my paladin actually had one for a while because it's the highest intimidate he could find. But kind of a one that I've gone for. Deadly. Usually I've usually not really looked for accuracy in general, so I've kind of gone more for a deadly of spell points for my non-spellcaster types to use for epic destinies.
And resistance I seem to use on the cloaks quite a bit, especially that you can craft your +3, 4, 5 resistance items fairly easy, especially for the lower levels.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. Random loot for cloaks again is like the named items for cloaks have tended to historically for me been just good enough that I'm using the name stuff, but not good enough that I'm not always looking for a better cloak. It's kind of one of those that weird slot for me. Anything else you guys want to say about cloaks? I know Steiner wanted me to mention that we should totally be able to see cloaks, like a cosmetic cloak.
that would be so cool. And how much money would we spend on dye
Not
and
a
different?
dime.
Oh, come on.
You could have
I
logos.
know, I know I can't be the only one.
I know you're not the only one, but I'm not a cosmetic-y,
I want to
super
see a
cosmetic person.
forest green cloak flowing in the wind behind me as I run. Just be cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who like it. So I'm going to talk about move into game news, and there wasn't really a whole lot. Probably the biggest news, there's a patch we'll talk about, but there was also an announcement today that the Players Council has been invited for 2016. People still have to accept, but if you applied to be in the 2016 Players Council, Turbine said thank you for applying. They had over 300 applicants, which made it really hard to pick people. Emails have been sent if you have been selected. If you were not selected, you will not get a sorry you didn't get an email. There's just too many people to do that for. So if they're also sorry that if you're hoping to get in but you didn't this year, I would say on top of that, apply next year. So it doesn't mean you weren't qualified by any stretch of the imagination. I know some of their selection kind of parameters is they're trying to get a wide variety of people. So if you kind of are one of those niche players that has for whatever reason, I'll say non-normative play experience, you probably have a better chance than if you are one of the 50% of the power gaming community or something like that. But good luck to you too, I will say. Enjoy your time on the council.
Make good choices.
Give good feedback.
Yep.
Play nice. There was also Update 29 Patch 2, which came out. The Artificer's Arcano-Technician's thaumaturgical battery base effect no longer stacks large numbers of copies, which was causing game performance issues. The same is true of Fate Singer's Intoxicating Presence. We'll say there was kind of a tease that Arcano-Technician is getting a pass in Update 30, which should be kind of fun.
It was in the producer's letter.
Was that?
Yeah. There was one little note about was it the producer's letter or the feedback on the council?
It was on the feedback of the council. That's where it was.
There was just a bullet point that listed
that
it.
they had talked about it, but there wasn't really any more information than that. But hey, there you go. The items, skills now say there's a competence bonus instead of an enhancement bonus. Well, these are kind of changes or tweaks to the random loot. Concentration will no longer show a value of 0. Several spell critical effects have the correct names. Corrected some text in some places. End reward items should no longer sometimes appear blank. Let's see.
Speaking of text, there was an interesting little bug that for some of the random loot, if it was in your what backpack or shared bank or auction house, it wasn't
Like string
displaying
table
correctly.
errors, yeah.
Yeah, so
There's 2 string table error cloaks on the auction house. I checked.
yeah. So as they go back into your inventory, that gets corrected. So within 3 days, everything in the auction house will be fixed. But if you got something in your shared bank or something, just pull it out and put it
So
back.
what? Until then, you're bidding on some random thing you don't even know what it is.
Well, people
It's a
probably are
lucky
gonna bid on it.
lottery.
Yeah.
The annoying place would be as if it's in your reincarnation bank.
Yeah, that I'm
That would
not
be-
sure if those
that
got
would be a
mucked
little
up or
tricky.
not.
Probably. I've had it happen before to old items that they're in there more because I was too lazy to pull them out and sell them, not because I was really keeping them. But I have had that happen in the past. See, legendary green steel negative level effects no longer affects allies. The vulnerable stacks still do. One of them you can get. I think it's vacuum applies stacks of vulnerability when you cast spells on. Supposed to be for enemies, but it'll affect you as well, which is pretty funny. See, the tier 1 enhancement bonuses for legendary green steel to ability scores was increased to 15. Spell points and hit points were changed to profane bonuses, but were also reduced in overall amount. Stacks of ingredients will no longer sometimes be unable to go into an ingredients bag. Insight bonus effects and extra effects on random loot will not appear below level 10. Sad. Which is probably appropriate, because some of that stuff was a little overpowered, but sad. Spell sight has returned to random loot. Master of Knowledge is now more consistently working. And the bonus effect for all 5 Abishai cookies has returned. There you go. Little bug fixes, nothing really major. Let's see. They did have a note about they now have tools in place to monitor for effects that stack upon themselves too much, so they can hopefully identify and resolve those when they come across them. One thing that makes it trickier, it's not very binary, or not always binary. Sometimes it takes a specific set of conditions to occur before it happens, but that's one of the things we're looking at. Bonus days. Plus 50% guild renown, and plus 10% group XP boost per party member through January 31st. It's honor your guild. No, it's a recruitment weekend. That's what they're calling it. So go run with people. Store news.
Yeah, throw up the LFMs. That's how you meet new people.
Yeah,
But I hate people.
but they're giving you 10%.
Right,
If they
but
can get
it's
to the
worth
quest, they're
it.
giving you 10% XP. You don't have to talk to them. Just
Fine.
bring them into the group, and let them find the dungeon.
Okay.
Store news. For a limited time through Sunday, January 31st, you can get plus 20 Lesser Hearts of Wood. Also, if you buy one, you get a free plus 5 Lesser Heart of Wood, so yeehaw. The Honor Your Guild sales through February 4th, 20% off of Astral Shards, Guild Renown Elixirs, 50% off of the Guild Charter, and Airship Beacons. You can also get a lasting potion of Jump plus 20 times 5 with a special code. And that is the game news. Community news. The 176th Chronicle. BizBag is collecting DDO stories. You can check those out. I think that has to do with the storylines, not just people's stories. We got a shout out for our debate episode with Varguil as moderator, which was a lot of fun. Propane was here. You had fun, yeah?
Yes, I did. It's a great time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The High Lords of Malkir on Sarlona are hosting a heroic abbot teaching raid at 9 o'clock on Saturday Eastern Time.
I mentioned the show got quite a bit of discussion on the general forums.
Oh, yeah, it did. I've got some of that coming up in Lightning Post. The guild
okay.
for the week, Arcane Alliance, is an Orion-based guild. It's currently level 70 with a Kraken and all buffs. It's been around for about 6 years and coordinates questing and raiding. The comment for the week, what's Eretrico's brother's name?
Bob.
Bob.
Soymatis?
Yeah, Sulu would kind of seem to be a rather appropriate one, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a...
Wait, that's his lieutenant, right?
Yeah, it is
So-
kind of his lieutenant.
Nepotism.
Nepotism.
Promoting within your family or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. It's classic.
Yeah. Jerry, that is a really strange question, my friend. I got nothing.
He was busy looking at applications, so
Yeah, that's true. See, fan site news. Damsel DDO ran Kenneth challenges.
Oh,
I heard you had lots of fun.
yeah, we did. We did.
The Shitty Rogues went into Haywire's Foundry. DDO Players News looked at the latest happenings in D&D in episode 69. Axel continued his retrospective videos. The Order of Cycletica investigates stacking helpless damage. And Enrique was looking at the benefits of dual boxing. Let's see. There's a new Twitch, new DDO stream show, Brighter Days Ahead, Thursday evening, which is pretty cool. Fridays at 5 is still going on as well. And PayPal is once again available for turbine purchases. And then Massively Overpowered also is considering the start of DDO in a new article, which is kind of fun as well. Let's see. Blogs this week. We'll link to Enrique's benefit of dual boxing. DDO Gamer talked about an inventory manager and ideas about how to make that a little more convenient for folks. BioBreak talked about 14 MMOs worth of dungeons experiences, which is kind of a fun little read. Let's see. Geek Mom was back talking about some lessons have to be learned. Had to do with her gamer child. Decided to go after a beholder, a named beholder, and learned a lesson about that. Tactilicious and Craftalicious talked about DPS or more spell points for, I believe it was heroic green steel crafting, and Full Moon Fury had an intro guide to epics as well, which is a good read as well. And let's see, other news. DDOCast Splat made it through a week without having to reroll anybody.
Shocker.
Been like
I couldn't believe it.
That despite the fact that we ran around like chickens with our heads cut off in stealthy repossession. It was a little crazy.
it sounded like it was fun.
We did have a lot of fun. Let's see. It was crazy and hectic, and we managed to get through it, but it was kind of wacky. Lightning Post. The debates episode did have a lot of feedback. It was great to see a lot of that. I like seeing a lot of feedback. Just kind of some highlights of that. There was a resounding no to higher than level 30. And then Inspired Quarter, Cult of the Six, Drome, and Sharn got some shoutouts for legendary upgrades. Shroud Abbott and Tempest Spine got shoutouts for the best raid. I mostly didn't pick those because, Shroud, Harry's just not as dynamic of a raid boss as some other ones, so that's really where I came out on that. The Abbott, it's almost a little too over-designed, I would say. Those puzzles are pretty hard and have a really low margin of error, which is kind of my big beef with the raid. I like raids where you have an opportunity to recover from problems, as opposed to, oops, you misstepped, you're dead. It's just a little too, a little over the top for me. See, Tempest Spine, I kind of think of it more as a large quest than a raid a lot of times, but that's just kind of me. There were also some great ideas being thrown around, like earning past lives through high-end advancement as an alternative to actually going through past lives. So, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I can't believe you said Harry wasn't dynamic. He's got such
He
sex
doesn't
appeal.
move.
He's got sex appeal. He doesn't need to move. He's
typically
Harry.
surrounded.
He's like, hooker, you come to me. I don't go to you.
Yeah.
Back in the day, wasn't there a strategy you'd cast Ice Storm in the center, and he'd pop out to where it was cast because if no one else went in there, and then you'd have to deal with the blades.
He used to move a little bit, so you could find him not in the blades. That was
He
long
spins
time
really
ago.
well, though.
He does. He's just not. He's not that dynamic.
He's not your
He
fave,
he
huh?
just stands there and you beat on him. And
Now, in the
I liked when we
Heroic
got away from
Shroud
that.
Part 5, he bounces around a little bit more, but
he can, but usually people just surround him, so he's not really doing a whole lot. So
And I don't know if you saw it or not, but I did put down there in the chat for you that plus 20 Heart of Wood is 2,495 points, and it does include plus 5 Lesser Heart of Wood.
Yeah, so it's a pretty good deal
That's
if you're
pretty
looking for 'em.
cool.
If
It
you're
is
looking
pretty
for
cool.
that
I'm
heart-
buying one right now on Argonessen. As soon as I read about that, I was like, I gotta go get mine.
Isn't a plus 5 Heart of Wood like 2,000 points?
Something like that, yeah.
So it's not very much more for an extra heart.
Yeah.
Let's see. El Ratio, as someone who joined DDO rather late, the one thing that he would like to see was lower minimum level on Legendary Green Steel. I don't know. I thought 26 was pretty appropriate. Maybe that was just me, though.
Yeah, actually, I was hoping they'd bump it up a level to give a little more separation between Green Steel and Thunderforge, so you have another level in between them. But you get your level 26 Thunderforge and Green Steel at the same time now.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. With that, I'm going to close out the show. Thanks, guys, for joining me very last minute. I appreciate that.
Roger, Roger.
No problem.
And we'll give a big shout out to Propane's wife, who was kind enough to allow him the use of the living room and computer. Thanks for listening to the show, and thanks to other cast contributors and to Turbine and Wizards for making DDO happen. Thanks to Cyberairs for hosting the podcast. It's really awesome that they do that. They really make it really easy for me to get the show out, and I love that. Anything to make my life with this show easier is fantastic. Lets me take more time to do other things with the show. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, if you have a comment on this episode or a question you'd like to ask us, or something you'd like to hear us debate about, leave a comment. Send me an email, ddocast@gmail.com, tweet, whatever, however you want to get a hold of me. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. The closing tip comes from Agaxion on Kenneth. Use the Hall of Heroes entrance in Evening Star to quickly get to Evening Star Cavern, and use the center portal to quickly access your guild ship and save the long walk. Great little tip.
Nice.
So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your tests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to go find some good cloaks.
Get a cloak.
Yeah.